I'll go ahead and start my introductory remarks. Welcome, everyone. My name is Joshua Randall. I am the Director of Education for UXPA International. It is our pleasure to bring you this Wednesday webinar, as we do almost every month. For those who wonder, yes, this is being recorded. Yes, it will be up on our website at uxpa.org in a few days. So if you happen to be watching this as future you, thank you for watching. Today we are going to hear, excuse me, we are going to hear from Swapnali Thakkar, who is going to speak to us about building creative and collaborative UX teams. Swapnali is based in Mississauga, Ontario, Canada, Toronto, if you aren't familiar with all the smaller towns. She has extensive experience spanning various verticals and is a visionary UX strategist and design thinker. She's currently serving as a consultant in the public and private sectors with a rich background in UX and an expertise in nurturing talent while mobilizing cross-functional teams with a vision towards achieving human-centered results. Swapnali actively participates in design organizations such as UXPA, IDF, and DesignX. We are very grateful to have her here, and hopefully she does not have a frog in her throat like I do. Take it away, Swapnali.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Joshua, for that humbling introduction. And hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on fostering a culture of growth. Like Joshua said, whether you're tuning in from a comfy office chair or juggling a cup of coffee like me at home, or trying to grab a bite, I'm excited to dive into how we can build more collaborative, creative, and purpose-driven teams. So thank you, UXPA. Thanks to Jennifer Romano, Sarah Mastro, and Joshua, of course, yourself, for giving me this chance to say a couple of words and meet with all of you. Just before we jump into the nuts and bolts of growth culture, I just wanted to set the stage. So we're not here just to talk about growth, but we're here to really understand it, to feel it, and so that we all can drive it. Because as you may have already experienced, each one of us has a unique role to play in this journey. By the way, I'll be using menti.com every once in a while to ask a question or two to the audience today. These answers help me inform some of my future talks or events or some content I might want to write about, or some services I could offer. I'm a consultant and I'm always looking for opportunities to expand as well. So coming back to the topic at hand, I have more recently noticed that when we're talking about user experience design, or even accessibility for that matter, which is often my interest and focus, we're actually talking about culture change. When we say things like, they don't understand what we do, what we're actually encountering is a cultural difference. Imagine like visiting a foreign country and no one understands your jokes. That's a similar thing that we are facing here. This is the primary reason why it feels like we're speaking a strange language, because what we're asking for is actually culture shift. So this got me into thinking, and I just did some of my research to better understand what is this culture. So as the dictionary, Merriam-Webster dictionary defines culture as a set of shared attitudes, values, goals, and practices that characterizes an institution or an organization. So let's look at what are some of the detailed aspects of what is culture composed of. So when we talk about values, there are core beliefs and principles that guide the behavior of the organization. These are often, you may have seen them outlined in companies' mission statements and are fundamental to decision-making processes. and how the company represents itself to the public and also its employees. Norms, on the other hand, are unwritten rules and expected behaviors that guide how members of an organization interact with each other. Communication styles often relate to the way in which information is shared, and this can significantly impact the culture. It could also be something as trivial as how the information is preferred. Is email preferred versus a Slack message? That can also speak a lot to what that culture represents. As we all know, we engage in rituals and ceremonies in our, something like and quarterly town halls or annual parties, weekly team meetings. These also help reinforce the values and norms within our teams. And one of my favorites, and to all the designers, it's symbols and visual identifiers. They also speak to the culture. The way our offices are designed, the way our logos are designed, often also speak to the culture we are in. Power structures. Power structures are essentially how power is distributed in the organization. This includes who makes the decision, how influence is exerted, and the levels of hierarchy that are present. Especially my work with the government, I deal with this a lot. There's a lot of hierarchical hoops that you have to jump through. Rewards and incentives is another good one. It's the methods by which employees are motivated. So what is it that is going to drive your actions? Bonuses, promotions, recognition programs, all of that speaks to the rewards and incentives. And last but not least, and definitely not least, is the leadership style. The behavior of leaders at all the levels sets the tone for corporate culture. Leadership styles can range from authoritarian to democratic, and anything in between, really. And this influences how employees feel about their workplace. So now that we know what cultures are made of, and I mean, there could be many, many more things that we can add to this honeycomb. But at the high level, now that we know what it looks like, how might we then look at creativity within this cultural existence? We, as a species, especially humans, but also other species, have an innate desire to create, to build, to make. We can't help it. Whether it is solving a problem of physics, or creating the atomic bomb, which is disastrous, or it may be the creation of International Space Station, or solving the problem of a pandemic. We can't help it. How do we then harness this pulse that thrums in our very essence, within our teams, in our daily lives, effectively? That is really the question that we're trying to address here today. So let's see if we can draw some inspiration from the animal kingdom again. Creativity in the animal kingdom, as seen with the architectural finesse in the earlier shot of bowerbirds and the aquatic artistry of pufferfish, like here on the left of the screen, mirrors our own inventive drives. Creativity is about generating ideas, recognizing the good ones to solve problems, or finding alternatives. So if you're a leader, it is our job to acknowledge and nurture this deep desire to create. But let's be honest, we get into the routine of our corporate world and we lose touch with this very human desire. We hold design reviews and critique, which may have once served their purpose. Excuse me. but they might also be stifling the very creative nature. So just to give you an example, in one such team that I was brought in, I witnessed this happening. The designers were holding back in the fear of judgment. My predecessor had somehow instilled this fear through a traditional hierarchical model where designs were reviewed and critiqued every week. This also kind of resulted in an analysis paralysis, like the designers were already analyzing their designs before even showing them to the team. That gave rise to hesitation in presenting the designs. So the culture change I was seeking here was to move the team from cooperative behavior to a more collaborative one. I realized this need for a healthy balance between the two. So cooperation is characterized by the subordinates following a leader and not giving much thought of their own, just going through the motions basically. And the designers were simply Figma mockup makers. I like to give my teams much more agency than that, which is why we needed to move from cooperation to collaboration. And it's always a journey, never an end. Instead of design decisions getting tossed over the wall from product managers to designers, we decided to work together from the start. And within the design team, we changed the traditional reviews to more of a workshop setup where we had problem framing workshops and ideation workshops. This way, the team had a chance to work together and have a healthy and sometimes even heated discussions about problems. I think in the new developments in AI, we need this more now than ever, because creating Figma mockups is not the job. It is about bringing the human, analytical, and empathetic and creative nature to the table. We tried this workshopping method, and the results were like turning a monologue into a dynamic conversation. It enriched our solutions and energized the team as well. So here are some tools I recommend to get your teams going from cooperation to collaboration. So like I mentioned earlier, problem framing workshops really help with that, where we get everyone together to figure out what is the real problem we're solving. It is like making sure we know where the target is before shooting arrows at it. The second tool, and I'm sure a lot of you have already used this, is the ideation workshop. This is where we throw all of our ideas on the wall and to see what sticks. No idea is too wild. So it's like a brainstorming playground, essentially. And the third part is audit workshops. So this was another tool that we used where we took a step back and looked over what we have done so far, and then some of the new opportunities or tweaks to the experiences we've built. So this was something like taking a pit stop for a race car, making sure we're in top shape for the next lap. So these are some of the tools I recommend, but I'm also curious to ask the audience this question. If the audience can go to menti.com on their phones and answer this question, you'd have to enter a code 55779566 after you.
So it's Menti with an I?
Yes, Menti with an I, MENTI.com.
Okay.
And then you should see a question pop up there. Which one of these tools have you used?
And what was that code again?
The code is 55779566.
Okay, I just put that in the chat for anybody who wants to click on menti.com and see the code there.
give them a minute. Is it not working?
I am seeing a question about from mandate to movement.
Oh,
There we go. The next question, if you either answer or skip the mandate to movement one, will be which of these tools have you used?
it asked me to click the update button, so maybe that was
There we go.
all right. Some of the answers are coming. Ideation workshops, yeah, those are a lot more popular as well. So from these tools that I mentioned while you guys answer this question, problem framing workshops or ideation workshops, they really help to align the team and to better understand what we're solving and why we're solving what we're solving. You know, bowerbirds or pufferfish, like some of the examples I shared, they don't just build, they innovate for a purpose, whether to attract mates or to navigate their environment. Their behavior really underlines the importance of nurturing our innate creativity. And it's not only a means of survival, but a profound way to interact with and enhance our world, which is what I think our job is really as UXers. By acknowledging the importance of creativity, we tap into this fundamental force of life. And that's why I'm using examples from nature, because it's really very fundamental to life itself. However, in order for us to do this, there's a larger thing at play, and that is the big one. That's trust. As a leader, you have to earn the trust. This means leaders must behave in ways that make employees feel that they're safe, that they belong, and that they matter. So next topic on our list is trust. The dynamics of trust have changed as we experience a shift in the paradigm of building trust versus earning it. So according to Rachel Botsman, she's a trust expert. I would advise look her up. Information flows through disparate providers now, rather than a single source in a traditional hierarchical organization. So like just pulling back to our animal friends, in meerkat groups, for example, one or more individuals take turns acting as sentinels, standing on high ground to watch for danger, while others feed or rest. This sentinel trusts the group to respect their role and respond to their alerts, while the group trusts the sentinel to give an early warning of approaching threat. Trust is a fundamental aspect of our society and crucial for our survival and success. As Rachel Botsman says, trust is a confident relationship with the unknown. I love this definition. It just summarizes trust so well. So in the animal kingdom, for example, trust is often earned through consistent and beneficial behaviors that promote the well-being and survival of the group. So many animals, for example, engage in behaviors that require trust, such as hunting in packs or taking turns, watching for predators. Even sharing food and other resources is a common way animals earn trust. I was watching this documentary, and by the way, my son is a big animal fan. That's why we watch a lot of animal documentaries, and that's top of my mind. That's why I'm sharing that with you. So I was watching this documentary by Bertie Gregory. I don't know if you've seen any of his work on Patagonia puma. There was this puma with 3 cubs who had not been able to hunt for 7 days. She and her cubs were hungry for over 7 days. Finally, one day, she was successful in hunting down an animal for food. So as her cubs start devouring the food at a distance, she spots her injured sibling walking towards it. The sibling also wanted a share of it. It was just amazing to watch. Although alert, this puma who hunted the animal, she steps back and lets the sibling and her cubs also eat the thing that they hunted while she watches from a distance. She's still hungry. She's still hungry. She's watching from the distance. She's not touching the food at all. I was so overcome with reverence for the species. What an example of empathy, mutual respect, and also in some ways vulnerability, right? She was willing to risk her territorial control for the greater good. So being vulnerable about what you're going through also helps build trust, actually. In our case, like if you're leading a team or if you're part of a team, you can say things like, I'm struggling with this right now and this particular problem. Can I come to you for help? I may turn to you for help, and it's okay as a leader to ask your team for help. This takes away the pressure from being a perfect know-it-all leader. As leaders, we may not have all the answers all the time, but we have the unique skills to get to them. So that's what makes us leaders. And that's what builds trust with our teammates as well. Also, it is important to be open and honest about your team, their individual performance or their collective performance, while ensuring risks are communicated from a place of care. And I've gone through my own learning curve to communicate such things, having those difficult conversations as well. But we get there. We learn and we get there. These behaviors are essential for the survival of individuals and the success of the group as well. So emphasizing the role of trust in our work lives on a daily basis, basically. What are some of the things that can kill trust? Trust is as fragile as the leftover takeout container you're still hoping is good. Disrespecting contributions or micromanaging can crush trust quicker than you can find the lid for that container. We earn trust by being transparent, honest, and most importantly, by showing integrity in our actions. So the culture change aspect that we are looking at is going from mandate to movement. Let's talk change, right? It's one thing to say, do this because I said so, and another to inspire movement. Just to give you an example, I had a product manager and designer. So we kind of, in that particular team, paired each product manager with each designer, and they kind of traveled together throughout the project. So this particular pair was struggling with the problem for quite some time. The PM was essentially hired to deliver better onboarding experience for the users. But during his research, he had uncovered many other problems that were related to onboarding, but not quite in the scope of his role. The pair had done a ton of research and ideated many solutions. However, they were not able to quite find the right approach, This is where our leadership comes in, of course. We offered to analyze the research using our UX research expertise to see if we can find the root cause. And sure enough, we were able to find 3 distinct ways in which the problem of onboarding can be addressed. Just to give you an example, onboarding can take different shapes and forms. So one is just getting in, being able to sign in without hesitation. The second part is learning, so the education part of. So we had certain empty states, for example, used as education tools, things like that. So we found these 3 distinct buckets. This not only gave a clear sight of vision, but also allowed the product manager to now think about the roadmap for the future. We achieved movement among team members. We gathered everyone together and solved the problem together, joined forces to solve the sticky problem. The pair were no longer alone in their struggle, and they felt supported. In your team, so I'm curious to know now from the audience, in your team, are you told what to do, or do you have the autonomy to choose? Or do you feel like you are a very collaborative group, always there for each other? So just curious to learn. From you guys, do you feel the movement, or do you feel that you do your job because you're mandated to do so? So again, if you're just joining, go to menti.com, menti.com. That's up here on the slide. Use code 55779566. Thank you for those whoever's answering those questions. Trust is an important factor that determines how much wiggle room you have in your job, how much you're allowed to change. In low trust teams, people will most likely do just enough to meet the mandate. They may not go above and beyond because there may not be enough trust that their extra work will be recognized or acknowledged. Whereas in high trust environments, people will contribute freely without holding back. All right, thank you for answering that. Moving on to the next slide. There are some tools that I have used to enable leaders to earn trust, or even team members, to earn trust. The first one is enable the team, which means that give everyone they need to shine in their roles, kind of handing out super suits that perfectly fit each team member's superpowers. The second tool I use is, or the second guide I use is forgive the mistakes and guide further. So when someone slips up, don't point fingers. We figure out what went wrong, we fix it together and learn from it. It's all about growing stronger, like that example I gave with the PM and design pair. We worked on it together. The other thing I like to do, and if you're an individual contributor, you can even start it, is weekly encouragement. So maybe you have a teammate acknowledge their contribution for the week. I used to do this every Friday on a Slack message, tagging everyone, every single one of my team members, and acknowledging their contribution. And this helps them think that their work is being noticed. Someone's looking at what they're doing, especially in larger teams. I think it's very important. Cross-pollination is another good one. Again, taking inspiration from our natural friends. We created a platform called Design Partners, where each member was paired with another to meet up and discuss. Meet up and discuss anything, really. It could be an formal chat or discuss work if they wanted. So this was a remote team. And I think a lot of us are now remote. So it's important to make that time on your calendar for this type of work. And it was done in pairs because my team at the time most of us were introverted and no one was as outgoing. So they were more comfortable in pairs rather than groups. But you can come up with your own way to find how can teams cross-pollinate. They often shared things that they wanted to discuss for their own growth. It could be like their own performance growth, or it could be things like something from tech news, latest news from technology, or the latest Figma plugins or tools, whatever it is. Sometimes I gave them little prompts every week of what they could discuss, but they were not tied to it. I think it worked wonderfully in this particular team. as you may have noticed by now, that culture, creativity, trust, these are all interwoven and they overlap in the way each works to influence another. But all of these hang in balance with our next best friend, purpose. Clear purpose, knowing why we do what we do. Have you ever felt like you're just going through the motions? I think we've all been there, and there are some times that we all still feel that. Can't be energized all the time. But there is this great book by Simon Sackmeister. It's called Business Culture Design. In his book, he says, organizations do not form by accident. People organize with a purpose in mind, like UXPA, right? Like we organize because we have a purpose in mind. It's just not, we just don't hang out and do nothing. That's not possible. People organize with a purpose in mind. But somewhere down the line, it seems that organizations lose touch with this purpose as they drown in the sea of KPIs and OKRs that no longer make sense. So let's see again if we can draw some inspiration from nature, just to give us some more meat to what we're talking about. So savanna elephants, right? They're called ecosystem engineers. They play a pivotal role in their habitats. Their diverse diet, far-reaching foraging patterns make them seed dispersers. Their actions, like felling trees and digging water holes, not only reshape the landscape to allow new growth and benefit other species, but also demonstrate their innate drive for survival and ecological balance. Their complex social behavior further reflects a purpose-driven existence that emphasizes the importance of community and environmental stewardship. So what can we learn from these savanna elephants, right? As was written in one of the articles in Harvard Business Review, in a purpose-driven culture, leaders have a key responsibility. They must clearly communicate and authentically embody the company's purpose and values. So here's a thought about KPIs and OKRs. And for those who don't know, KPIs are key performance indicators and OKRs are objective key results. How might we tie these? These are essentially the metrics by which teams are measured, individuals are measured. So how might we tie these metrics to the larger purpose? What if everyone on your team could see the direct impact of their work on this common purpose? I would like to share an example again here. I was working on a government project that had been struggling for over 4 years. And this is not unusual within the government. The engineering team didn't quite understand the business requirements. They couldn't provide enough information to secure the funding for this particular project. And the business team could only articulate the requirement as, in essence, they had a lot of slides, but in essence, what it said was, we have an outdated system and we need new technology, that our system should be up to date and well supported. That is in a sense what they were trying to say. But the people who hold the money, who hold the funds, didn't quite understand why was it necessary to upgrade that system. When people lack purpose, when it's not clearly defined, they feel like they're on a boat without a rudder. They lack direction as well as motivation, because if you don't have funds, there's no motivation to go any further. And the old system is gonna, annoy you every day, but you don't have a clear way of articulating the need for it. They also feel underappreciated and disengaged. This was the cause for the 4-year lag on this project. So when the UX research and design team started digging deeper with our usual tools, user interviews, talking to actual users, what we uncovered was 5 other related systems that needed to work in cohesion with the one in question. We then brought this problem over to the business. We engaged them through workshops. Again, we workshopped ideas with them, took the time to empathize and understand the business problem as well. This also helped, like the workshop, the coming together, it was, believe me, it was challenging. It's not as easy as it sounds here. But the workshops finally helped the business team appreciate the importance of user research and user requirements, because now they were able to clearly articulate what they were lacking. We had, with this approach, we had helped the business team redefine their purpose to say what they want in a cohesive, unified way, to enter and analyze data from different sources so that it's cost effective and efficient. I cannot give you more detail than that because this was a government project, but essentially that's what we were saying. We want a cohesive way to gather all of this data and then display it for the users. And of course, being government has to be cost effective and efficient. This will allow their future, data-driven decisions. This clarity of purpose actually opened the door to uncover clear and concise requirements for the business, which in turn helped them secure the budget for it. So a clear purpose, as you can imagine, increases satisfaction among team members. It boosts productivity and drives innovation while the team moves in cohesion and alignment. A lot of words there. Animals like wolves or lions are driven by the purpose of protecting their territory, right? This not only provides them a space to live and hunt, but also secures a safe environment for their offspring. This type of territorial behavior, it involves actually a lot of strategic planning and social coordination, demonstrating purposeful action to maintain control over a vital resource. So in the case of the government, the vital resource was the budget to make this thing happen. So what do we learn from this, right? A business strategy cannot be considered in disconnection from the business's purpose. The purpose indicates a general direction, right? It's not telling you what to do, but the strategy is what tells you what to do. It's the road that leads there toward that direction. So what aspect of culture change did this pave the way for? It allowed us to move from output driven, which would have been simply update the technology for the one system, to an outcome driven approach, which was more holistic approach, reducing risk for the future as well. So what are some of the tools that I've used to build or to clarify the purpose? One of the things I commonly use is called a hopes and fears workshop. I don't know if you've used that. We open the floor to everybody to voice their biggest dreams and biggest worries about our projects. It could be a small project or a big overall. It's our way of clearing the air and prepping for success. So get your worries out of the way, get your fears out of the way, and put them on the board. It helps a lot to just vent it out. And then we also take care of the history, because there's a lot of, sometimes, especially in government, a lot of baggage that comes. Imagine a 4-year delay, how much baggage it may have had. this happened and this happened. Put it all on the wall, get it out of the way, right? Another tool is regular retrospectives. Now, we all have heard retrospectives in the context of agile development, and we do our retrospectives. But this retrospective is every quarter. We do it with the team, the design, research, or it depends on how you're organized, preferably cross-functional teams. And we talk about things like people, processes, and technology. So people would be, what skills do we need? Are we lacking? So in one such retrospective, for example, one thing I was working with another team, a thing that came up was, hey, we often struggle with the fact that we don't know what words to use on the UI because a lot of us don't speak English as our first language, and we often struggle with how do I structure this error message, for example. And we found that the skill we are lacking is actually writing skills. So we ended up hiring a UX writer on board. So that type of stuff around people skills and some further education support that they might need. Processes, what's working, what's not working overall in the process, not just for the sprint. So we are thinking the big picture. And how can we make it better? And similarly for tools, what tools are we using? What is working? What are we actually using? This way, it helps the team take ownership of the solution. And you as a leader are not overwhelmed to find a solution for every problem that the team might have. Enable them to find the solution. What do you think would help us get out of this problem? And then in your next retrospective, you could look at whether or not those solutions worked. If they didn't, try something else, you know. But last but not least, the most important tool here is sharing the purpose regularly, especially for if everyone here joining today is from UX background, or if not, our most important purpose of this profession is to work for the user. No matter what company you go to, no matter what industry you go to, our purpose is serve the user. And there's always a user. So we will never be out of a job because there are always users and we work for them. So in this design team, we often shouted out, who do we work for? The user. And then that just made the team, you know, recharge and reorient towards the common purpose of being user-centric. So as you can see or feel, that what we're tackling today is quite loaded. And we're only looking at a small slice of what might constitute a culture in your particular organization. But whatever mixed bag you might be looking at, there's one thing that is common in all of us, and that is leadership. So dolphins, for example, will often stay with the injured or sick individuals. Dolphin leadership is subtle and not dominated by aggression or force. Instead, it revolves around cooperation, knowledge sharing, mutual protection, reflecting their advanced social intelligence and communal living strategies. They support sick individuals to help them to the surface to breathe. They encourage their recovery. They ensure their safety. So they're almost like, you know, guardians to each other. Leaders are the architects of a workplace. Their everyday actions set a tone that can either inspire or deflate. We strive for leadership that not only talks the talk, but walks the walk, making purpose tangible and aspirational for everyone on the team. So what is the culture change aspect that we're talking about here? So like we said before, with an increasingly distributed world and democratization of our roles and responsibilities, I think that there's a shift that needs to happen at the level of leadership. So this isn't about being the loudest in the room. It's about being clearest and most encouraging. Leaders need to be seen as approachable, not just authoritative, where their confidence inspires and not intimidates. We ought to move from arrogance to confidence. I was lucky enough to be a part of a team, again, a government example, where I met an incredible leader. He was very approachable and clear in his communication. Every week, he still does that. He holds a 15-minute meeting twice a week with the entire department. These meetings are informal, and he's so sweet to talk to that it's not intimidating at all. They're informal in their approach, where he'll give some updates and policy decisions that might be happening, but he'll also call on individual people on the team to share what they're working on. Some of these conversations have been quite wholesome, where people shared their feelings, sometimes frustrations for working with the government. They talk about their passion for working for the people, making their lives easier. At other times, it is simply an update, and some of us shared something from our personal lives. All in all, this meeting, just 15 minutes twice a week, was a fertile ground for open communication, camaraderie, creative ideation, trust, and realignment to the larger purpose. This particular leader played a great role in doing all of this, making it happen. So leadership isn't just about giving orders, right? It's about nurturing that growth. One of the things I've done with some of the teams I've worked with is knowledge sharing sessions. So I noticed that the designers were meek and scared. It's the same team that had a lot of introverts in it, scared of voicing their opinions. They seemed just happy going through the motions, put down, Figma markup done, slap and go, right? I needed to recharge this team with inspiration and reignite the passion for being user-centered. We started something called knowledge sharing sessions, where each designer, no matter how senior or junior, signed up for a 45-minute presentation. This allowed the team member to voice their thoughts, generate thoughts, or do some of their own research and present it. The goal was to regain that lost confidence and refuel the work with alignment toward a common goal, which was, of course, to work in the best interest of the user at all times. Another one is informal self-assessment for leaders, just asking the team in one-on-one, how am I doing? Like in one-on-ones, I often ask, how am I doing? What can I do better? It was hard in the beginning, to be honest, to ask that question to a team member, what can I do better? But you just have to do it, and then it gets easier, and actually it gets better, and really good conversations happen from that. Accurate performance metrics. So this is the one we're going to dive a little bit deeper, and we're coming close to the end. So how can individual performances be better aligned to the overall purpose of the company? And this is like a topic that's really close to my heart. As leaders, it is our responsibility to ensure that there is a logical alignment between the performance metric and the larger purpose. I've seen this quite often when teams are confused about their OKRs, or the metrics by which they're measured, and there seems to be a disconnect. The culture change that we are looking for is really moving from price and cost to the value that we are bringing to the table. And the purpose is what will define the value that we are trying to bring to our users. So I was doing some research and looking for examples of who is doing this well. And I came across Cisco's net zero goal. And really just Google it. Amazing. It's so inspiring, at least on what they've shared publicly. It is really inspiring. They have a clearly defined purpose as we pursue our purpose by closing the digital divide, empowering the future of work, fighting for equality and social justice, and building a regenerative planet. So very clear and concise in terms of what exactly they want to achieve. Which then makes it easier to follow through with all the other metrics that need to be measured against this purpose. I would encourage everybody to read it up and get inspired. The trickle-down examples are things such as reducing emissions from Cisco products during consumer use, or reducing emissions from transportation and distribution of Cisco products. And they get into even more detailed depth. And they have a great PDF online as well that you can download for their purpose-driven initiatives. So again, to go back to what is the culture change aspect we're looking at? Going from price to value means we are looking beyond cost and seeing the real benefit we bring to our customers and to ourselves. It's about quality, not just quantity. Ensuring that every product, every service truly makes a difference. To sum up, you need a strong purpose and leadership to guide the team to trust you, so that the creativity at individual levels is harnessed effectively. And that is the end of my presentation, but hold on, there's a couple of more questions for everyone, and I would like to hear any other questions from the audience as well. But thank you for staying with me through this journey. Building a culture of growth is like gardening. It needs patience and care and right tools. And most importantly, a bit of sunshine. I don't have today. So I would like to hear from the audience. What are some of your key takeaways today? So you can either type here on Menti, or you can type in the chat or Q&A, whatever is available to you. I would like to hear from everyone.
So yeah, so audience is on mute, so you can use the Menti link that is on your screen there. I do have a couple of questions for you. You mentioned how you've done a lot of work for the government, and you showed us the Menti question earlier about where do you sit on the scale from mandate to movement. So this person wants to know, in a government setting where there's a lot of rules to follow, a lot of mandates, what are the opportunities for movement?
So in the case of government, it's easy and it's hard at the same time, because especially the Canadian government has a clear policy on user-centered design. So that helps guide the mandate, saying, hey, there is this policy that we are following, and we need to be able to bring you all together in this room because we have a mandate. So that's why it's a little bit easier, but it's also difficult because it's new. Human-centered design is very, very new. And people don't understand why do we need a meeting? How do we use a Miro board? Or we already asked this to people. Why should we ask it again? Or why do we need a workshop? So there is still that hierarchical mindset that we have to navigate and bring everyone together. But the policy makes it easier because you're not doing something just because you want to. There's a policy guiding you. So there is a nice mix of mandate and movement there. Does
Great.
that answer the question?
Yeah, if the person who asked this, if you feel like you didn't quite get an answer, you can go ahead and put in another question. That would be fine. You have described, Swapnali, only a variety of workshops and sort of group meetings that we can have throughout the process. So the question was about how long do those usually last, or should they last?
Oh, great question. And I have a slide for it. Um, I usually facilitate a few workshops, and reach me out on LinkedIn, by the way, if you need any more help with these as well. So purpose definition workshop, that takes the longest, I would say, especially if the leadership is not aligned. So there would be an alignment workshop, and then there would be the crafting of the purpose for the team or the department. That takes longer, so about 4 sessions to begin with, and then 4 more if there is friction. You know, when I say session, 1-hour session is what I would recommend. For ideation, again, it depends on what you're ideating towards, and problem framing is, you have to have problem framing before you can ideate. You need to know what problem you're ideating towards. So it's kind of, I include that. It's great one for roadmap planning, and that usually takes, again, I usually break down like the bigger problem into smaller problems, and I tend to address 6 of those smaller problems in one 1-hour session, if that gives a little bit of a formula there. So if you have like 12 problems, you'll need 2 1-hour sessions. I would not, I've tried it. I tried going like booking like a 2-hour session. People get tired because usually the workshops I facilitate, they're very like go go go, you're working, there's no idle time for anything. You're constantly thinking, you're in the workshop and you're getting things done, so it's very, very productive, but very, very tiring at the same time. So those I recommend, again, depending on how big that problem is. And problem framing workshop, that could take about 2 to 3 1-hour sessions, again, depending on how big the problem is as well. And I do that as a service as well. So if you need help just to get you started with a workshop or something, and then you take it from there, that's fine as well. Let me know if I can help with any of this. Does that answer the question?
I feel like it did. I have a question for you. So you spoke throughout about the importance of culture, and it reminded me of the cliche from Peter Drucker where he said, culture will eat your strategy for breakfast. So my question is, knowing this, knowing how strong culture is, how can we balance it with our other desire to have a strategy that we do want to enable?
That is a great question. And it is hard. I will admit that it's a balance that you're constantly struggling with. But I think just one of our meetings was called a review, like I mentioned. We just changed the name to workshop, and it changed the dynamic of the team in the way the team interacted. Oh, it's a workshop, so we can do stuff. We can actually contribute to stuff. Little things like that. Cause like, it depends on where you want to take the culture, right? Is it the trust that you're missing, or is it creativity that you're missing? What is it that you're missing, and how then do you guide the team towards it? And what type of formula of a workshop or formula of, I don't know, some encouragement, little weekly messages. I also send, for example, an annual greeting card, like a seasonal greeting card to everybody, personalized, handwritten, not an e-greeting card, to everyone, acknowledging their contribution for the year, for example. So stuff like that depends on what problem is it that you're trying to solve in terms of the culture that exists.
Great, thank you. Well, I have placed Swapnali's LinkedIn link in the chat, so hopefully you get some new LinkedIn friends. Here's our mentee question as we wrap up here. Everyone is very thankful. Any final words you want to leave us with?
No, thank you for having me. I have my LinkedIn here on screen as well. And I will share this deck with all of you. And I also have all of the reference links here for those who are interested in learning further. So thank you so much, Joshua, for coordinating this, facilitating it, and thank you all for attending.
You are welcome. Thanks, Swapnali. This will be up on uxpa.org in a few days after we process the video. Everyone have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.